Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's Friday night. It's 7 o'clock. That must mean it's time for Josh Guest to come in. And Josh Guest is in his office. It looks like at Northwest. He's got his Omaha hat on. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing great, Stephen. Baseball season is around the corner. It has started at Northwest. I actually got to call the games on the broadcast Friday last week for the doubleheader. They split. They won 11-1. The very first inning of the season, Northwest batted around without a single out. The first out of the game was the leadoff hitter striking out in his second at-bat of the first inning. So highlighted by a grand slam. It was a lot of fun. And then the high school team my son's on started last Thursday. And then, of course, Ole Miss gets kind of a late start in Hawaii with a 4-game set. That's right, tonight, this weekend. So great time to be a baseball fan. And then, of course, I know you're down there. You've mentioned it before with your little I think it's a 5-game set you have for the the Tigers spring training, right?
So, yes, a week from Monday is my first game, and that's the Tigers and the Astros.
Okay, awesome. Yes, I mean, just a great time for baseball right now. And I know that things slow down dramatically right after the Super Bowl. And then you have that break in the summer, I guess, All-Star week that they're kind of off. So things are really slow. And right now is one of those slow times. But in the sports world, but, man, baseball is getting ready to be amped up. And so super pumped about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty fired up. I mean, what I'm doing in this short period of time is I'm trying to get interviews and extra perspectives and different stuff to come in. I've got Chris Childers next week. I've got Barrett Salee next week. I've got this week DeMarcus Lodge. We're going to talk NWO. Yeah. And I've got Max Chadwick, who was last night on Thursday night. And we got Keith Carter that's going to make his debut on, I think, March 1st, somewhere around there. So the week after that, so we got even more interviews as we're getting ready to make it to spring break, because after spring break is when spring football is going to happen.
And then it'll pick right back up and kind of get a little bit of impetus, a little pump in it, a little jolt or a shot as we head towards that much ballyhooed season coming up in 2024 for the Ole Miss football team that there's so much excitement around right now.
Oh, it's absolutely nuts. You would be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't think highly of this Ole Miss football team. I mean, that's completely cool. I think Brett Murphy from the Action Network did a way too early playoff prediction and didn't put Ole Miss in it. I mean, that's probably the one time. And I would be willing to bet that Lane Kiffin or whoever just saw that and it was like, oh, that's awesome. Kind of like Kirby Smart whenever he had his team after winning a national championship convinced they were going to win 7 games.
Yeah. Anything you can do to motivate them.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. I'm excited. We'll start off, though. Ole Miss has, I don't want to say a get-right game. I don't want to say a slump buster. Missouri comes into town on Saturday. Missouri is winless in the Southeastern Conference. They're 0-11 at the moment. They got beat by Vanderbilt, if that lets you know what's going on. Of course, Vandy beat Texas A&M.
Yeah, I was about to say, you can't count it as a dub just yet. But
yeah, but it's a situation to where Ole Miss basketball has a chance to get right. And Ole Miss needs to go probably either 4-3 with help or 5-2. 5-2 gets them comfortably in. And it can be done. And they play Missouri twice. You cannot lose to Missouri, period.
That's right.
So in the last 5 games, you have to go 3-2. If you can go 3-2 against Texas A&M, who you've already beaten, Mississippi State, who you've already beaten, South Carolina, who you came all the way back and you had a chance to make all kinds of noise. You've got Alabama, which will be a difficult game. And what's the other one?
I don't know my schedule well enough to know who that other one is.
Yeah, it's a game that is at Georgia. It's at Georgia.
Okay, Georgia, that's right. Yeah, Georgia's on there.
And you can go 3-2 in those 5 games as long as you hold serve against Missouri.
Yep, and I know we're talking about Missouri, but I just flashing back to Kentucky, I did like some of the things I saw. I know we got beat, but as was alluded to, Kentucky had lost 3 in a row, and they were going to be trying to get right. I think Coach Cal said it in the pregame show that it was the first time he's had the entire starting lineup healthy all season. And so what blew my mind was how good offensively Kentucky was in spurts. I don't remember the guy's name that was shooting those rainbow shots over Cisse, and they were just all like swishing.
Yeah,
it looked like he was wildly running down the floor. But that's something that he must do and must do well, because he made so many of those. And then was it Pritchard that just hit a couple of big threes? One from I think he hit one from Oxford. And then when
Will
he
Shepherd
missed, Shepherd, that's it. I'm sorry, not Shepherd. And when he missed, there, somebody else was there to step up and make another three. So we just kind of ran into a buzzsaw. And I'm not trying to make excuses. It's just I don't know that we played that poorly, but they just shot the lights out of the gym for a couple of spurts, especially when they took the lead, maybe the 14 or 15-point run of the first half. And then in the second half, when we got within 4 or 6, they kind of pulled away again. And both times, I don't know that it was as much poor. There may have been some poor assignments from time to time, but to me, it was more that they just shot the lights out of the gym than anything that we did wrong necessarily. Of course, I don't really know basketball, but that's just how I felt about it watching it.
Yeah, and it's a weird situation because Ole Miss basketball has lost to exactly one team that doesn't have a number next to their name. They've lost to Auburn twice, Tennessee once. They lost to South Carolina and Kentucky. I mean, that happens. And most of those have been on the road with the exception of the Auburn game.
Mm-hmm.
LSU would be the lone, quote, bad loss that Ole Miss basketball has.
But it was on the road, and Tim Thomas tells us that's 10 points in the SEC. And this year it seems to be a pretty big deal to, go on the road or be at home. So just for the whole conference. But getting back to Missouri, you don't want to count them as wins, but you got to beat that team both times.
Yeah.
You got to do it. You just have to. So
let's change the subject. It's opening day tonight, probably sometime around 11 Eastern. I'm not sure exactly what the time is, but Ole Miss will play Hawaii. They have a 4-game set against the Rainbows, and Mike Bianco has an opportunity to kind of empty his bench since it's a 4-game set. You're going to see him use a lot of pitching. I think D1 Baseball came out and like the number 1 college prospect at third base is Andrew Fisher.
Okay.
There's a lot that's going for Ole Miss. Now, if you look at the coaches have Ole Miss predicted 6th in the West. But there's prospects. Ole Miss has as many like top 100 college prospects as anyone.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see exactly how this is going to go. It feels like it could go either way.
Well, and so I didn't see it live, but I did go watch Bianco's presser from Friday, which he kind of joked around with the press who have been around a while that usually it's the week of the series, but this year they did it the Friday before because he said we kind of have extensive travel plans next week, going so far out to Hawaii. So he was having a little fun. Good to see Mike being jovial and all those things. Or Coach Bianco, I should like Mike, like he's my friend or something, like I know him. But I was looking at the roster and kind of familiarizing myself with some things. And, Trayson Hughes, top-rated transfer portal guy, is going to play in the outfield. And Mike said point blank, we brought him in for offense. He said, last year we felt pretty good about our offense because we brought some of those guys back from that national championship team. He said, I think this year we don't have any of those guys who started that are left on the line in the lineup in the World Series. And so he may have left somebody out.
That's true.
You got Trayson Hughes, then you got the Fisher that you talked about. And by the way, I said Andrew at first base, but I was thinking about third base when I went to that fall game. And then Jackson Ross is the first baseman. All 3 of those guys are big bats. Jackson Ross led the fall, 7 home runs. Andrew Fisher, 6. He was second. And then you got Luke Hill at shortstop. Isn't it Luke? It's something Hill at shortstop.
Yeah, Luke Hill. Yes, the Arizona State transfer.
Yeah, and I think did he have 5 home runs? I don't remember. I know Trayson Hughes is not a big power guy, according to Mike, but he hits the ball all over the field and uses the whole thing. And he's basically a center fielder playing right field. So think about what that does for your outfield defense. And then the most surprising thing I heard in the press conference was when Bianco was talking about Judd Udemark. Bigger guy, 6'5", like 230-ish, 240-ish, and talked about he may be the fastest guy on the team. And you might, you could put him anywhere on the corner, right, left, first, third. He might could even play center field. Like, it was just amazing to hear him talking about such a big guy with that kind of skill set.
Kemp Alderman vibes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Kemp also, I mean, anytime you went to batting practice, a game, if you got there early enough, we got there early enough several times. Kemp Alderman, when he swung the bat and the ball hit it, it just sounded different than anybody else in the stadium. I mean, it just was a different feel. Like you didn't have to see it to know it was him. If you had your back turned or if you were in line to get a Coke and a hot dog or something and he hit the ball, you knew Kemp Alderman hit the ball because it just sounded different. And so Udemark, though, by the way, because he is a big guy, his freshman year, I don't even know if that was last year or the year before, but I watched him hit one out to left, and he hit it out to left. It was good. So it was a towering home run. It wasn't one of those line drives that gets out. He hit it, and you had a picnic, and then it landed about halfway up in the seats. 2 or 3 minutes later, not really, but you get what I'm saying. TJ Quinn is going to start tonight, and then another thing, Gunnar. Oh, I got it. Let me see if I can find it. I have it written down here. Gunnar Dennis is a left-handed pitcher from Meridian Community College, I believe. And Bianco said from the first inter-squad game until now, he has been the best pitcher on the staff, and he's a lefty. So that brought joy to my soul knowing that we lost 2 lefties, already for the year.
Which is weird because his fastball, I think, sits at around 88.
Yeah, and Mike made no qualms about it. And he said, I'm not knocking anybody else. There's been other guys. Grayson Chanier, you mentioned, having a good time, and so did Riley Maddox, who's going to be the Game 4 starter, by the way. And then JT Quinn. He said both Quinn and Saunier have physically retooled their bodies, gotten a lot bigger and stronger. And but he said that Gunnar Dennis has been the best throughout the time. And then I think he turned around and said Quinn hadn't given up an earned run. So if Quinn's been that good and Dennis has been better, I like my prospects of my 1-2 guys right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see, like I said, the game tonight. There's going to be a lot of box score watching from me because I'm not going to stay up till 4 a.m. watching an Ole Miss baseball game on a stream from Hawaii. But this is a situation that I'm interested in. I want to see if JT Quinn, I want to see if that defense holds because honestly, this should be a game. This should be a series type thing where there's a whole bunch of 9-2 score lines put up by Ole Miss.
Yeah. And look, Stephen, I'll just tell you right now, okay, it's not outside the realm of possibilities for my family, my entire family. I'm talking about me, my wife, my son, possibly even my daughter while she's at college, for us to find this stream and pay for it and be up until 4 a.m. watching the Rebels live. That's just, we're that much of a baseball family. So we may or may not do that. I won't say we will because we only know of one game that we can watch right now, but we will be watching everything we can. But super excited to get started and to see these new faces. Don't know if I mentioned this yet, but I think Mike also said this is unusual for Ole Miss. 23 people on the 40-man roster are new this year, whether transfer in or recruited new, out of JUCO or high school.
It's a situation as people are watching this video as we're talking about the game. I'm at Epcot right now. I'm sitting here, and the reason I'm at Epcot is some of the most ridiculous things you're ever going to hear. Disney is giving away annual pass magnets, okay? If you have an annual pass, you can go pick up a magnet for free. And it's like the chicken from Moana. And they have an annual pass thing, and my wife said, we're getting that. So we're going there. Like 3 or 4 people in my family are just going to pick that up, and we're probably going to eat in, Rose and Crown or something like that, and we'll come straight back. Yeah,
I thought you were saying you were eating Norway or something like that, but on their little island of
I thought about it. We thought about it, but we would go eat at Italy and Epcot and around the world, but it's all the way at the end.
It is. It sure is.
And I don't want to walk 17 miles for food, It's just
well, you're and look, we've done similar things too, where there's been a promotion and we said, that's the thing we want. We're going to go do that. And so, we may or may not have gotten to Ole Miss baseball games, 4 hours early to try to get whatever thing they were giving out that night or that day. So, that's kind of how we roll. So definitely understand your wife there wanting to go get whatever the promotional item is, that magnet from Moana.
And it'll be on her car. along with the other Disney annual pass holder magnets that she has collected. Oh, that's what she does. She collects those, and hey, I'm all for it.
That's
I
right.
just hope that while I'm there and I'm at Epcot, we'll get to ride Guardians of the Galaxy as well.
Oh, yes.
Hmm.
Yes. I'll be jealous. I'll be
Yeah.
jealous.
So Ole Miss has that big win. Oh, big win. Big game tonight. Big series. They play tomorrow night against Missouri. Football spring practice is probably going to start after spring break. And a little birdie told me that Austin Simmons got on the flight to Hawaii, and there's a good chance he might pitch this weekend.
I'm anxious to see it, Stephen. And I looked for highlights of him pitching and couldn't find it. I know he's got a big arm. I did, however, watch. I don't even know how long the video was. It was longer than I thought it was going to be, but I didn't care because I've heard you compare him to Tua, and he is left-handed. But the thing that jumped out immediately to me, it didn't matter what his base was, and what I mean, it didn't matter if he was off balance, rolling right, rolling left, feet set. Dude was super accurate. There were so many throws where his receivers were well covered and the ball was in the only place that his guy could catch it. And so, I mean, like you can hear the excitement exuding from my voice right now just from watching those highlights. I also watched, because I heard you say, it may have been this earlier this week on one of your shows about watching, I can't even say it, Ricino.
Yes.
Yeah. And dude, like, I don't remember what his stat line, 33 touchdowns his senior year or something, but they showed like 16 of them, and he shouldn't have scored any of those 16 if the defensive people looked like they could tackle. He broke so many tackles. It was amazing. And I noticed also you always talk about the lateral movement of what the coach is like, and he could be going down the field in one direction, and all of a sudden he was 3 yards to his right or left, and, you know, another missed tackle bouncing off of something else. And I did throw in a little deuce night. And there were a couple of runs where he just bulldozed somebody at the goal line. But now the thing that immediately jumps out when you watch a Deuce Knight highlight is he looks like Goliath on the field with everybody else. He's just bigger than all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. He runs his I don't even know how to compare it. I know somebody you had talked about Lamar Jackson. I even thought now I can't remember my thought. It's going to come to me at some point. But I was amazed at how well he glided around the field. It looked like he was just gliding. And he wasn't just gliding. He was gliding at a speed far greater than anyone else. There were people that had the angle on him 2 or 3. And there weren't a ton of, he didn't just take off running because he could. There could have been 17 more highlights of him scoring touchdowns on the ground, I believe. But he was just throwing dime after dime after dime. Not as, to me, Austin Simmons was more accurate, but man, Deuce Knight was an amazing just athlete. And I know I didn't look up any basketball highlights. I know people talked about it, but I can't imagine what it would be like because he was so far superior. And I'm not knocking anybody else because I'm sure there were other good athletes, probably even some D1 athletes on the field with him on some of those videos. And he was just in a class all by himself. So kudos to Notre Dame for getting that commitment, and hopefully he can end up wearing a Rebel uniform one day if we need him. So because that dude looked totally legit.
Yeah. Remember, and everybody that's thinking about quarterback recruiting, this time 2 years ago, Marcel Reed was guaranteed to come to Ole Miss and committed. And this time a year ago was Damon Williams. He was committed as well. So if you're committed now, that doesn't mean you're going to end up there anyway. So thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Josh Guest joins us for his weekly segment on all things Ole Miss sports, and we appreciate it, buddy.
All right. Howdy, toddy. Go Rebs.
Go Rebs. And, hey, enjoy staying up until the wee hours of the morning.
Oh, I will.